So I had a lot of fun making my worst to best list late last year with the PlayStation 5, and as soon as it was done, I obviously ended up getting more games for it. 5, to be specific, because it's arguably my primary console of choice these days, so of course I did. But once that video was done, I started thinking about what other consoles I have a physical games collection for that I could do similar lists with. The problem was, I didn't really know which one to do next. The PlayStation 4 would have been the next obvious choice from a purely numerical standpoint, but at the moment, I currently own close to 150 physical games for that system, and I wanted this follow-up to come out sometime before 2026. I thought about trying to do a handheld console like the PS Vita or something like that, but I'm dumb at figuring out emulation, and I only own like 2 games physically for that anyways, so it would have been a very short one. I even briefly thought about ranking all the games I own for the Atari 2600 in order to hit the complete opposite end of the spectrum from the PlayStation 5. But I don't actually own an Atari 2600 to play these games on, and then I remembered I would have to talk about the ET game, and I just don't want to do that. In the end, I just decided to go ahead and ask all of you here on YouTube using the community tab. And out of the options I provided, more of you chose the Nintendo Switch. It's one of the more recent systems that I own, so it makes sense that y'all might choose that over some of the other options I presented in the poll. And with Tears of the Kingdom out now, it seems like as good a time as any to finally sit down and talk about this red bastard. Plus, I'm specifically not opening and playing this game until I actually complete this video, so I actually have an incentive to get this video done. To keep this intro from going on too much longer, this video is going to be me looking at each of the 21 games I currently own a physical copy of for the Nintendo Switch. After being on the market for 6 years, the Switch has an impressive library of games, and while I'm still missing a few of the arguable better titles, I do have a fairly diverse selection of games to play here. And since I haven't played some of these for quite some time, I refreshed myself on anything I may have forgotten by playing each of the games for at least 3 hours before I wrote about the game itself, similar to what I did for the PlayStation 5 video. I do own at least a few of the more well-known and popular Switch games as digital copies for a number of reasons. I still want physical copies of these games because I like collecting them, and I have been burned one too many times to embrace a digital-only future. So, they won't be showing up here. When you don't see Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or the absolute greatest of all time and arguable system seller that has vroom in the night sky anywhere on this list, that's why. With that all out of the way, let's just get right into the list. As I mentioned, I currently own 21 games for the Nintendo Switch physically, not including Tears of the Kingdom, and so I'm going to jump in right with number 21 and rank every Nintendo Switch game I currently own from worst to best.
Draw.
Right off the bat, we have a game that breaks one of my key rules when making this video, that being that I have to play each game for at least 3 hours before writing about it. However, Scribblenaut Showdown is not a game intended for someone to play for multiple hours. It's intended for 5-year-olds who want some kind of challenge in their life and to subject their parents to boring tedium when religiously binging episodes of Bluey becomes too monotonous for them.
Look, I'm watching!
Well done, Bluey. Huh?
Scribblenaut Showdown follows in the footsteps of previous Scribblenauts games, but instead of having you spawn fantastical and silly things to help you solve simple logic puzzles in largely open environments, you instead play a bunch of basic minigames where you spawn things to solve singular issues over and over again. Each game has you spawn something that you think will help you win a race or prove you know the best words, but they also give you a clear advantage if you choose something that fits into a category, so what's the point? You really only need to know that tree works with forest and other such basic baby knowledge shit like that to win. The only mode even worth playing in this game, in my opinion, is the sandbox mode, since that's basically just like a traditional Scribblenauts game. But then I would much rather play an actual Scribblenauts game, like Unlimited for the Wii U. I would still gladly pick up and play this game over something like Ball and Wonderworld or Godfall on the PlayStation 5 because of the simple fact that this game can be fun if you're playing with friends and trying to spawn the dumbest possible things you can just to see who could win, but it doesn't really extend far beyond the basics and is rarely fun otherwise. I don't know, at least you can summon Cthulhu in the game. It's not something you can really do in our next game, though.
The beautiful game. The King's game.
And you've got to be happy with that.
The Mario sports games are one of those things that we've all just come to accept as being a thing. And some of them are honestly fantastic titles. But then you have a game like this. Mario Golf Super Rush is the worst kind of lazy sports title, with its core mechanics being subpar and its general appeal being decidedly below that, which is a genuine shame because of how incredibly fun the opening cinematic looks. Honestly, if the game were more like this, I probably would rank it a lot higher. The game does offer a few unique things like a mode where you run after your ball, but is otherwise just a stripped back golf game compared to other Mario Golf titles. For the most part, all of the courses look like actual golf courses instead of something from the Mushroom Kingdom, and the few unique flourishes that are present feel more like tacky lawn ornaments than actual manicured courses. Now, I may be a bit biased considering I enjoy Toadstool Tour from the GameCube, but this one doesn't even try half the time. Sure, it got a couple courses later on that are based on things like New Donk City, but that doesn't really address the many issues I have with the primary courses that the game launched with. If all of the courses were like New Donk City, or if they had a lot more flourishes like they did in Toadstool Tour, I probably would be fine with it. But instead I got to play PGA Tour with Pauline instead of Tiger Woods. And then there's the story mode, which is just you trying to be the best like no one ever was, but instead of engaging in sanctioned animal fights, you instead get to hit a ball and hope it knocks Mario on his ass. The only real appeal here is seeing all the Mario characters in their golf attire, and if you know anything about me, you know that my girl Daisy is my favorite out of the bunch. Sure, Pauline, Waluigi, and Toad are absolute knockouts, but Daisy looks so damn cute in her golf outfit, I'm often distracted while playing, like I'm sure most of us are. No? Just me? Well, at least I know King Babam feels the way I do.
Holy moly, it must be my birthday.
Rollin', 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 rollin'.
Katamari Damacy is an acid trip of an experience if you've never seen it before. You play as a supremely small little prince rolling everyday objects around various enclosed areas with the goal to make the biggest ball you can to repopulate the stars in the sky because your father, the king of all cosmos, went on a drunken bender and broke them all.
What's the harm if I was slightly naughty?
Katamari Damacy was one of those titles I recall playing on the PlayStation 2 that I picked up solely because of how weird the concept was. Rolling up everyday objects as this little prince of the Short King army is a wild idea, not really helped by the weirdly stilted in-between animations about blocky Japanese kids being ignored by their parents. However, this is one of those games I feel like I look back on more fondly because of its aesthetic rather than the gameplay. It might be the port of the game or my inability to properly follow directions, but trying to control this little guy as he gathers up mahjong tiles and push pins is an exercise in frustration. You use both sticks to turn, move forward or back, and charge, but whenever I try and push them in the right direction I think I'm supposed to, it just doesn't work. I feel like I'm just slowly going insane playing this, constantly turning to the right because that's the only thing that seems to make sense in a world gone mad, and then I start wondering where all of these crabs suddenly came from. Katamari Damacy Reroll is a fine game, but I can't seem to get a handle on its controls to fully enjoy it enough. I wish I could tell you all that I had a ball playing this just for the sake of the pun. Instead, it just makes me want to go on my own universe-destroying bender with how frustrated it makes me.
Let's fucking go!
Of the 5 Pokemon games that I own physical copies of for the Nintendo Switch, Let's Go Eevee is the one I'm least likely to play for a number of reasons. Aside from the obvious fact that I have 4 other Pokemon games on the same system that I find are arguably better titles, Let's Go Eevee is actually one of several games on this list that technically belongs to Claude, as this was the version we got for them when we picked up both copies. I got rid of my copy of Let's Go Pikachu a while ago because I don't really enjoy it as much as other Pokemon games, but Claude still has this one, and as such is still part of my physical games collection for the Switch, so it counts for the list. And it's not the last title we'll be talking about that's technically Claude's. Beyond just that though, the fact that it's yet another game that takes place in Kanto isn't really appealing to me, this being the 4th time Kanto is featured in a mainline game for the series. I mean, hell, it's technically the 6th time if you count Pokemon Gold and Silver, and then Heart Gold and Soul Silver because you still go to Kanto in both of those games. Or how about the fact that it plays more like Pokemon Go, and that you don't battle wild Pokemon to catch them, but instead is just having you flick your wrist faster than that time you looked at Vaporeon on Rule 34.
Did you know that in terms of male human and female Pokemon breeding, Vaporeon is the most compatible?
Granted, there's a few things I kind of like with this one, including it being the first mainline game to have wild Pokemon appear in the overworld, or how there's a master trainer for literally every Pokemon in the game. But later games in the series feature that first thing and actually let you battle the Pokemon, and after sitting through the Metapod Master Battle, I never want this feature implemented into a game ever again.
No, please wait.
Overall, I think Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu were more experiments, if anything, either as a way to try and break up the monotony of the formula, or maybe just capitalize on the popularity of Pokemon Go. It's fine for kids or people who want to pull a muscle while playing a Pokemon game, so flail to your heart's content if this is your thing, I guess. At this point, I own basically every version of Minecraft because I have a problem. So I have no shortage of options when it comes to playing this game. My go-to option for when I want to play on the go and don't want to lug my laptop around is the Switch version. But more and more lately, I've chosen other experiences on Switch over this one for a number of reasons, not just because this is yet another one of Claude's games. Minecraft is Minecraft. There's not really much explanation needed here. You punch trees, make tools, punch stone with those tools to make more better tools. You mine, you craft, you mine, you craft, you mine, you craft until everything you love turns into blocks or a creeper comes and blows your dick off. You can also spend an uncomfortable amount of time in creative mode making silly themed minigames for your friends to enjoy and upload them for millions to watch, only to end up with like 10 people actually watching them, even though they're super fun and you have more in the works that you really want people to check out so you can justify making more of them. Wink, wink. When it comes to choosing Minecraft over any other game on this list, I had to consider not only would I rather play Minecraft over a specific game, but also if I would want to specifically play the Switch version of Minecraft over another Switch game. Because let's be fair here, the Switch version of Minecraft, while perfectly playable despite its considerable lag and slow loading time, doesn't have trophy support like the PlayStation 4 version. It doesn't allow for mods like on PC, and if I'm bringing my Switch somewhere, I'm honestly more likely to just play Switch exclusive games on it. The only reason I would choose to pick this version up over another is for the admittedly cool Super Mario Mashup Pack, but that's also on the Wii U. And if your main selling point is one you share with a version on the Wii U of all things, then you know it's really not all that worth it.
Quit telling everyone I'm dead!
Sometimes I can still hear his voice.
Has-Been Heroes is one of those games that I first played on the Switch, only to eventually spend much more time playing it on another platform, most notably the PlayStation 4. Because again, I have a problem, and that problem is that Nintendo doesn't give me trophies for playing their games, just good times. So clearly it's the inferior system to play on. I've played this game enough on PlayStation 4 that my rarest trophy to date is still from this game, and likely will remain that way for generations. I will have grandkids who are gifted this trophy for Christmas as a family heirloom, except I won't ever have grandchildren because I'm not going to have children, so I'll just die, and it'll be buried with me for ancient archaeologists to find clutched in my decomposed hands. I've played the game a considerable amount of time on both PS4 and Switch, so that should be all the proof you need that I won't ever be a father. The game is fairly simple. You start out with 3 heroes, a rogue, a wizard, and a tank, using a combat system of removing an enemy's guard points so you can attack them directly like some weird lane-based real-time Yu-Gi-Oh match. You fight your way through a mostly skeletal horde of monsters to eventually fight the ghost of the Flying Dutchman's biker brother, and you either beat him, lose to him, lose on your way to him, or quit early because you don't want to commit to an hour of lane-based warfare. If you lose at any point, you put all the souls you've collected into a soul orb for Flesh Zenyatta. If you win, you either have a chance to unlock a new hero to replace one of your starter heroes with, or you get a new skin for one of the ones you already have. And once all that's done, you just do it again. Anyway, yeah, Has-Been Heroes. I personally think it's a lot of fun. When it comes to playing it now, I only ever really do it on PlayStation. There's no real reason for this since it's practically identical across platforms. I just like the trophies, and I would rather spend an uncomfortable amount of time grinding my way through the game on PlayStation until my arms fall off for trophies than earn nothing at all. Plus, there's still plenty of other Switch games I could play to make my arms fall off instead. Kinda like this one. When it comes to fighting games, there's usually a few things that are consistent across all of them. There's usually a wide variety of characters with their own unique movesets and personalities, and the real fun comes from mastering whatever characters you enjoy the most and winning. With ARMS, all you really need are, well, arms. ARMS is a fighting game with an incredibly complex premise. You ready for this? They're fighters with springs for arms. Yeah, I know, it blew my mind too. In all seriousness though, ARMS is relatively fun for a few minutes, but is otherwise just a cardio workout at the end of the day. Each of the different characters are well designed and fun to see what their unique quirks can do, like Ribbon Girl being able to double jump or Lollipop getting people into clown inflation, but they all only have like one victory animation, and that's about it. The variety of arm attachments is nice, but I usually stick with 1 or 2 across all characters, rarely if ever needing to swap them out or strategize. And while I understand the need for uniformity in the roster given the premise, with the exceptions of characters like Twintel, Mechanica, and arguably Helix, everyone is just a person with springs for arms. Not really breaking any new ground there. This game is largely function over style, which isn't necessarily bad, but I was hoping for just a bit more flair here considering this is Nintendo. Something like the hyper-expressive nature of the Punch-Out game for Wii is what I was looking for, you know? Maybe slap some springs onto Little Mac so he can finally have some goddamn reach without launching himself off the stage.
Yes, beautiful, feeling it. Let's get some smiles, it's all in here.
The original Pokemon Snap for the N64 is often considered one of the best games for that system. It, along with Pokemon Stadium and to a much lesser degree Hey You Pikachu, popularized the idea of Pokemon games on home consoles as opposed to just handhelds. And while the game is certainly fun, it does have a lot of shortcomings to it. Limited to only having 63 Pokemon, which, like, they could have at least added one more in there, because like it would have made 64 Pokemon and it would have been on the 64, you know, but whatever. It's not like this has bugged me for the last 20 years or anything. Players traverse a few different environments just taking photos of wild Pokemon, using apples to attract or abuse them, and doing things like forcibly evolving them, all for the benefit of an old man's judgment. And for years, I was wondering why we didn't get a sequel to this game. It would have worked on the GameCube to help bolster that console's library, on the Wii with the pointer functionality, and even the Wii U had the gamepad, which is basically like a camera already, but it wasn't until 2021, over 20 years later, that we finally got a new game in this franchise, and it's fine. New Pokemon Snap follows Nintendo's weird naming convention of putting new in front of an existing title, but is otherwise just a slightly revamped and prettier Pokemon Snap. The new environments you get to traverse are beautiful, the wider variety of Pokemon gives you a lot more opportunities for unique photos in each area, and some of the new mechanics like scanning your environment can be fun. But then there's stuff like how your camera feels stilted and unresponsive at times, or how the game's big gimmick of making Pokemon shiny for no other reason than making them shiny isn't really all that fun or engaging to do. That said, some of the photos I took did turn out pretty great.
Mama says my turn on the Xbox.
I don't know, maybe I was just expecting something a bit more grandiose, but new Pokemon Snap feels like they attempted to just remake the original game, and when they expanded it just enough, decided to make it a whole new game without changing too much else beyond that. The camera feels like they're just trying to harken back to the original game's clunky controls, the new professor doesn't neg me for giving him multiple pictures of a Bidoof's ass, and there's not nearly enough opportunities to take photos of a sexy guard of
Dude, we're getting the band back together.
The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening is a remake of a Game Boy game about Link having a dream where he murders everyone on an island by waking up. Link's Awakening for the Switch opens with a beautifully realized animation of Link being caught in a storm on his raft. But then after he's presumably struck by lightning, he wakes up on an island whose residents are all the littlest part of a plastic Matryoshka doll. Once he's awake, he's verbally abused by an owl into finding a bunch of instruments, and then he's off to explore the island, assuming he can get anywhere without the game freaking out. Yeah, this is one of those things that everyone kinda knows about this game, and it's a key reason why it's not in my top 10. If more than like 3 things are moving on screen at once, the game can lag considerably, which either means there's some problem with how the game was made, or this is Nintendo attempting to hint that everything in this game was a dream all along. Would have preferred the Mario 2 route if that's the case, but whatever. The plastic toy aesthetic is kinda nice, especially compared to the original graphics of the Game Boy version, but the overall package feels a bit too cheap looking to warrant the $60 price tag the game was slapped with at launch. This is Nintendo after all. They so rarely drop the prices of their games, you might as well take out a second mortgage in order to afford even a fraction of their console library on a single system. And if you're doing that to go after this one instead of something like, I don't know, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 The Black Order, fuck, that's your choice.
It's little and broken, but still good.
Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is a janky, broken mess of a game. Some of the new Pokemon designs aren't all that great, the open world feels weirdly empty, and the new Terrestrialize mechanic is honestly not that impressive after the first time you see it, but there's just something about this game that had me playing for far longer than I thought it would. If I had to boil it down to something specific, I would say that it was the surprisingly fun story, there's quite a few Pokemon designs I do like, and the freedom to play how I want were the key things that kept me playing. New characters like Nemona, Larry, and Penny were some of my new favorites for the franchise, and witnessing their individual stories made me want to continue through the game to see the ultimate outcome. The game just feels open and free once you're allowed to actually explore Paldea, but it clearly came at the cost of the developer's freedom. It's no secret that the game's development was rushed. I mean, mean, just look at the various glitch compilations on YouTube for that. I feel like if this game had been given even just another 3 months of development to flesh out those bumps, it would have been utterly astounding. But then you could probably say that about basically any game that comes out these days now, couldn't you? In the end, I enjoyed my time in Paldea, even if I could occasionally see through the floor or lagged just trying to run across an open, empty prairie. I do sincerely hope that the Pokemon Company gives the development team more time for the inevitable follow-up to this, instead of pushing it out the door for no real reason other than they have to have a game coming out. Now, if they decided to push one out because the whole game star is missing that might be fine to be glitchy. Make it sort of like Saints Row 4 then, and yeah, now I want to play that game.
Name is Hades, Lord of the Dead. Hi, how you doing?
In my original draft of this script, Hades was going to be number 3, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I don't want to play this specific version of the game as much anymore. The PlayStation 5 and Switch versions are basically identical aside from the obvious difference in portability, but I just personally prefer playing on PlayStation. Plus, this is technically another one of Claude's games since my copy is digital, and since I talked about this game enough in my PlayStation 5 ranking video and I'm working on a video dedicated solely to this game, here's a bit of a Zeus-fueled lightning round for ya. The combat in Hades is reactive, precise, and varies wonderfully based on the weapon you plunge into the underworld with, making every run feel different before you even factor any god powers or additional pickups into the mix. The various boons you can get help enhance runs and can help change the course of certain fights. The characters are all fun and engaging, and you genuinely care about their progression and helping them with their problems. Dusa is adorable, and I want to cuddle her forever in a totally platonic manner if that's what she wants, but our love could blossom into so much more if she just let me in. Alright, that's enough with Hades. I gotta save something for the solo video after all. Let's instead move on to my top 10 Switch games, since that's what we're all here for. Super Mario 3D AllStars is a fantastic collection of 3 of gaming's most iconic titles that I rarely actually want to play. Don't get me wrong, each game is a lot of fun to play, but I have played all of these games multiple times over, and the inherent thrill wore off for me with each subsequent playthrough. Super Mario 64 is the game that defined 3D gaming, but it clearly has a lot of funk to it that makes it hard to go back to these days. It's nice to occasionally drop into just to mess around with or try your hand at butt humping some stairs, but unless you grew up playing this one, I don't think it's worth playing as much nowadays outside of a history lesson of sorts. Then there's Super Mario Sunshine, probably the most unique Mario game in the series in that it's basically the precursor to Splatoon, only instead of making a mess, you're cleaning it up. The worlds are fun to explore, and the various nozzle attachments make encounters unique, but its mechanics make it one of the most divisive games in the series to the point that you'll either love it or just not really enjoy it. It's also the only game in the Mario franchise where Mario canonically can get Peach wet.
Oh my!
And finally, we have Super Mario Galaxy, easily my favorite of the 3 games, but still not something I'm personally clamoring to play more of. I know it's a lot of people's favorite game, but it never really did much for me outside of its weird gravity gameplay, the mini planets, and its tall blonde lady, especially since Ratchet & Clank Going Commando did all 3 of those things and more close to 5 years earlier. It probably doesn't help that Nintendo already made a fantastically stellar 3D Mario game for the Switch with Odyssey, so they kinda shot themselves in the foot on that one. Aside from the fact that it was leaked like a day or 2 before its official reveal, I don't think anyone ever expected to get something like Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. And yet, against all odds, the biggest surprise with this game is that it actually ended up being pretty damn good. The mere idea behind this game is bananas, involving the Rabbids getting access to a device that fuses 2 things together, and so naturally they start fusing Rabbids with Mario characters to make us care about Rabbids for a minute before causing chaos. You run around a destroyed Mushroom Kingdom, fight off Rabbids with an occasional Mario-themed Rabbids boss, and you have a grand old time watching Rabbids die.
I was there to witness all of them. Each frivolous and...
The biggest gripe I have with this game, honestly, are the Rabbids themselves, which is unfortunate because despite Mario getting top billing, this is pretty much a Rabbids game. Just about every bit of humor or conflict involves the Rabbids. And while there can occasionally be a good joke here or there, the majority of the time you have shit like Rabbid Peach taking selfies or Rabbids punching each other forever because violence is funny. All that said, the combat is surprisingly easy to pick up and play, and features a lot of versatility for a basic tactics game like this. One of my personal favorite details is that the battlefields you play on are part of the overall game world you're exploring. So if you destroy something during your battle, that same thing will be destroyed once the fight is done. It's attention to details like that that I can get behind and makes me want to play more. But then I remember I have to deal with these fucks far more than I ever wanted to otherwise, and it makes me want to try and find the closest bottle of bleach to end it all.
You have
out my sword.
This is the only Pokemon game I've attempted to do a Nuzlocke run with. Twice. It did not go well. I'm an idiot. I'm just gonna say that. I fucked it up. Pokemon Sword and Shield are basically the same as Scarlet and Violet, but with a more traditional style of gameplay for the series, including linear pathways, trainers actually wanting to fight you, and it doesn't run like it's constantly trying to implode on itself in an effort to commit digital seppuku. A lot of the ideas that Scarlet and Violet would take started here, including the wild area, as well as a villain team that's more of a nuisance than an actual threat. And if I'm ever looking for a more traditional style of Pokemon game on a modern console, I'd go with this one over the Let's Go games any day. There's honestly not much else I can say here if I'm being honest. Some of the new Pokemon introduced here are neat. Dynamaxing is another type of special move with the novelty wears off quickly that'll probably never come up in the series again outside of dialogue choices, and the trees might as well be Sudowoodo with how fake they look. It's another Pokemon game, but at least this one doesn't look like it's trying to rip off Playmobil.
Like there's a ghost right behind me, isn't there?
Luigi's Mansion was a launch title for the GameCube, finally giving Luigi a spin-off title that people actually kind of enjoyed. That was followed up 12 years later on the 3DS with Dark Moon, and both games are fairly fun. You explore mansions, suck up ghosts, and scare Luigi so much there's no chance he hasn't developed at least a minor heart condition. Luigi's Mansion 3 follows a lot of the same format as the previous two games, but now you're in a haunted hotel instead of various mansions, and you have a living gelatin mold of Luigi that you can just randomly deploy because why the fuck not? Luigi is actually a fun mechanic in the game, and it even adds some fun little animation changes depending on if you're playing solo or with a friend in co-op.
I did it!
Pretty much all the puzzles are designed to be solved in either single player or co-op, unlike the Little Big Planet games, which just sequester co-op areas off on their own little path. And it's nice to see a studio prioritize something like couch co-op for a series like this. In general, Luigi's Mansion 3 is a surprisingly relaxing little experience that's fun to play alone or with a friend. The hotel is well constructed, the animation is top notch, and the only thing that's missing is a crybaby meter. It's not enough to force Luigi into stressful situations anymore. I need to know that what I'm doing to him will have lasting psychological damage, damn it. Depending on who you ask, Mario Party is either a series about forging a stronger bond within your friend group, or about disbanding said friend group within the span of only half an hour to 45 minutes. Each game in the series offers its own host of unique minigames, boards to explore, and means of ruining lives, and in recent years, Nintendo has made major compilation games featuring some of the best features from the series past. This very much includes Mario Party Superstars, which takes game boards from the original trilogy of games on the N64 and spruces them up a bit, while also throwing in 100 minigames from just about every previous game in the series. Some games get more treatment over others, like Mario Party 8, which only has like 2 games from it, so don't expect to look like you're jerking it while playing this game. Being able to play through previous games and boards is nice, though I do wish there was at least a bit of new content, and no, stickers don't count. This is Mario Party, not my third period math trapper keeper. In general, Mario Party Superstar is just another Mario Party game. It's best played with other people, but playing with AI is always an option if you're a lonely like me. And for the most part, the AI is surprisingly well balanced for this game. I wasn't even able to use that joke theory online of Luigi always winning without moving, because it doesn't apply here. Despite what the theory says, you can't just sit there doing nothing, because at one point Princess Peach stole my pipe that she clearly knew I wanted to use. If there was ever a reason to eat the rich, this has got to be it. Then again, I won in the end and got to have a nice little coin fruit while she just gets to look at a bird in third place. So who really won out in the end here? Certainly not Wario back there. Stuck forever in an argument with Monty Mole. Probably talking about crypto or something. Wario seems like he'd be into that.
I'm stuffed now. I couldn't have enough. Okay, one more. I'm gonna have one more.
Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a game where you play as a sentient wad of chewing gum who throws bombs at a gorilla's dick for fun, but it's also the first fully 3D platforming Kirby mainline game in the franchise. The game largely has you running through relatively linear levels doing Kirby things, like being cute or voring everything in sight, but now you get to do all that without being restricted to a side-scrolling perspective. As you play, you'll attempt to rescue various Waddle Dees, one of Smash's biggest snubs, who all manage to get caught in cages by enemies called a Woofy and whatever these birds are adorably called. Probably something like Croby or Birdos. No, wait, that last one's actually a transgender icon. The big draw this time around, outside of the 3D perspective and Kirby's general charm, is the luscious environments for the post-apocalyptic setting, but also the game's big new mechanic with an objectively funny name. At certain points throughout a level, Kirby might come across a large object, and instead of sucking it into his massive black hole he calls a stomach, he can activate what's called mouthful mode. This is used to help open pathways, give new movement options or special abilities, and I'm sure if the regular suck abilities didn't do it for anyone, this certainly has gotten at least someone out there into Vor. Kirby in the Forgotten Land is a charming little adventure that I'm almost certain gets darker as you go because this is a Kirby title. Then again, the game does feature a gachapon capsule machine to collect little trophies with, so maybe this is just trying to say that capitalism is the real enemy here? Either that or it's Nintendo trying to brainwash kids into buying more amiibo. Probably that one now that I think about it.
Guys, you never believe what happened. First, I was God, then I met God.
One of the few times the Pokemon Company has arguably strayed away from their core formula for the Pokemon series, Pokemon Legends Arceus may have had a few bugs at launch and could honestly do with a bit more variety of content, but I personally had a blast playing through it when I streamed it last year. The main concept behind Legends Arceus is that you are a child from presumably the modern day who is suddenly and randomly sent back to feudal Sinnoh, otherwise known as Hisu. After being rescued by this nerd and capturing your first partner, you traverse the wilds of Hisu, throwing balls at unsuspecting creatures until they submit to your will. Barring that, you could always engage them in good old-fashioned animal fights. And since there's no league to regulate things anymore, it's not frowned upon that you're mercilessly beating up animals. Legends Arceus' big draw for me is the variety of activities it offers in regards to catching Pokemon. You can battle them the traditional way to capture them, sneak up on them and throw the ball at their butt in order to catch them, or you can run away like a little bitch because you accidentally ran into a Paris. I'm sorry! No! Please don't hurt me! However, while I do enjoy Legends Arceus, it's one of those games that could have used a little extra something. Maybe a few more trainer battles or another diverging story path to follow similar to what Scarlet and Violet eventually did. But it's still a lot of fun. I personally hope that Pokemon games start taking more risks like this while giving the devs the time they need to finish the games, but until then, I'll just settle for running into a field and being hyper-beamed by a Snorlax for no other reason than I wanted to get footage of me doing that.
I finally found it. Now who's gonna stop me?
My number 3 game on this list, and it's a remake of a Wii U game that didn't get enough love when it first released, only now with the option of Calamity Bowser. Super Mario 3D World is more of the same thing you expect from the Mario series. Run around mostly linear levels with a few optional paths with up to 4 players, unless you're me and you're doing a lonely, using power-ups to brutally murder a bunch of random creatures who are just vibing. You can do this as Mushroom Man, Bowser's Beard, Princess Punch-Up, or Keegan-Michael Key.
Keep messing around and see what happens. Just see what happens. Watch!
It's honestly a great game, one of my favorites for the Wii U really. Spoilers for whenever I rank all my Wii U games at some point in the future, I guess. But what I'm here for, and why this game is ranked as high as it is the secondary mode, Bowser's Fury. In Bowser's Fury, players have to team up with Bowser Jr., a sentient booger that ships his dad with Princess Peach because he's homophobic. You traverse various islands where everything is themed to cats, and thankfully not the musical kind, stomping on cat-eared Goombas while climbing cat-eared trees, passing by cat-eared seagulls in your own little cat suit, and collecting cat shines that go into cat lighthouses. Someone on the development team for this game is definitely a furry, and if somehow no one was when they started, I'm sure someone was by the end. You traverse these islands to help Bowser Jr. save his papa, who has been corrupted by the darkness in his heart and taken over by Ansem. Whenever you collect a cat shine, it goes into one of many lighthouses, and you have a limited amount of time to traverse the islands before Daddy Bowser wakes up and tries to roast you with more than just words. Once he's out, you've got 3 options. Run away like a little bitch until Bowser gets bored and goes away, collect a cat shine to power a lighthouse that hurts him slightly, or have enough cat shines gathered to unlock the Giga Bell, a power-up that turns Mario into Super Saiyan Meowrio, so you can go full kaiju fight with Bowser. It's a genuinely fun time that I wish was a bit more expansive than it already is, with maybe a few more islands, more worlds to explore, and maybe even a few other bosses from Mario's past getting their own tar bath. Like, could you imagine how dope it would be for Waluigi's first appearance in a mainline Mario game to be as Fury Waluigi? Dude's been sidelined enough over the years that I'm sure he's got at least a bit of rage he'd want to work out, and as we all know, men will do anything except go to therapy. With the success of the Metroid Prime series, I was pretty much content with thinking we'd never get a full-fledged side-scrolling Metroid game ever again. And yet, for nearly 20 years, the name Metroid Dread was thrown around like the second coming of Christ, and when it finally released, It was everything I wanted it to be. Metroid Dread is a game that controls wonderfully, with the right balance of combat, platforming, and exploration for the series. The boss fights are some of the best that the series has, and then you have the Emmy robots, which, well, let's just say I haven't bought the amiibo from this game, because I'm afraid those things will pull a Toy Story and come to life while I'm sleeping. When the Emmy robots arrive, it creates such a level of tension that I can physically feel myself about to explode from sucking in every orifice on my body. Trying to maneuver and outsmart these things is a phenomenal test of your understanding of the game's mechanics, and I rarely feel cheated when I end up failing. Easily one of the best parts of the game, and an easy reason as to why this game is number 2 on my list. And yet, I bet you can already guess what number 1 is going to be.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
Honestly, what can I say at this point? The whole reason a majority of people picked up the Switch on day 1, myself included, was for Breath of the Wild, and it is still my favorite game for the system that I own. Tears of the Kingdom may end up being better and knock this one down a peg, but for the time being, this is still one of the greatest games ever made, and easily the best game that I own on the Switch. Breath of the Wild's scope and ambition are beyond compare. Aside from the several dozen games that have come out since that have emulated the style, trying to capitalize on the success of this game, some even going so far as to rip off the trailer, but what many of those games don't quite grasp is the freedom of choice present in Breath of the Wild, leading to a virtual playground of options for players to partake in. I may honestly dedicate a whole video to this game once I get the Hades video done, so I guess keep an eye out for that. Or let me know if you want it. I don't know. If the original Legend of Zelda was meant to emulate Shigeru Miyamoto's childhood of exploring caves, forests, and fields in and around Kyoto, then this game perfectly captures that essence. There's just so many things to do, places to see, and discoveries to make that it can keep you entertained for hours on end. And while Tears of the Kingdom is using this game as its base, it'll have to do a lot to really knock this one down a hell low. And there you have it. Another library of games that I have painstakingly rated for your enjoyment. As with the PlayStation 5 list, there are quite a few games that I wish I had a physical copy of for the Switch. And maybe at some point I'll do a follow-up or sequel to this where I do it all over again, but with a bunch of new games thrown in because I can't help myself. In case you were curious, there's currently 8 games that I own digitally that I know have been released physically that I would love to have a physical copy of. And if I had had them when I started this video, this is how the rankings would have shaped out. Maybe I'll do a follow-up to this video with my digital-only games I own for Switch, since I own significantly fewer digital Switch games than I do on any other platform, so let me know if that's something you would like to see. But now I'm curious to know where you would rank these games, or even any of the ones I didn't include here because I don't own them. Let me know down in the comments how wrong I am, and be sure to subscribe to me here and these other places you see on screen for more goodness. As always, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see all of you in the next video. Thanks again for watching, and take care. Are they gone? Good. That means I can finally play you. Damn it. All right, let's... What? What? Yeah, what? What? No. No. No! No!